civilization. It's pretty easy to take it for granted, huh? We all live in it and rely on it every day. In fact, our modern lives are so embedded in this social construct that it can be quite difficult to imagine life without modern society. But what if all this were to come to an end? Imagine for a minute that our days on planet Earth were numbered. Say some sort of ecological disaster happened that meant the Earth could no longer support the human race. What could we do? Stay put and face extinction? Or perhaps take a lesson from civilization beyond Earth and look to the sky for a new home? But how realistic is this answer? Could we really abandon Earth and start afresh on another world? Now, I first played Civilization when I was just a wee boy with my dad and big brother. And you know what? That game taught me so much. I learned all the names of all the capital cities. I learned that you need magnetism for navigation in order to get the really big boats. But most important of all, I learned that despite what history tells us, Gandhi's a right f***ing bastard. But could this latest entrance in the series also teach us about space colonization? Well, I caught up with Lewis Dartnell, UK Space Agency Research Fellow and novelist, and I asked him if our days as a society on Earth were really numbered, could we also escape to the stars?
With our current technology today, it's not possible to pack 7 billion people into a spaceship and then travel not just within our own solar system, but in the enormous distances between the stars. With kind of current technology, it would take tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years to travel to the nearest stars in our galactic neighbourhood. But let's say that in the future we do develop suitable technology. Maybe we discover new kinds of physics that allow sci-fi things like wormholes or warp drives. Then perhaps, maybe not taking all 7 billion or the entire population of the planet then, but a small cadre of colonists and send a seed of the Earth to another world and establish a colony in another solar system.
Okay, so let's say that we are part of this lucky group, members of this pioneering expedition. Once we actually make planetfall, before we could really start to build a civilization, we need to make sure that we don't just, die straight away.
Your priorities at first are going to secure your own safety, perhaps to check there's no indigenous life forms. And I don't mean just kind of dinosaur-like reptilioids that might come and crash through your habitat and start gobbling you, but bacterial life as well. You'd want to do some kind of biological survey to make sure there's nothing there that would threaten you if you start exposing yourself to that environment.
Ah yes, the prospect of alien diseases. You see, because our human immune systems are so attuned to life on Earth and attack from the microbes that live here, we would have very limited protection, if any, against microorganisms living on this new world. But what about after that point? Say we do the survey and everything seems to be fine. How do we actually go about turning this alien world into home?
Once you've settled down, the next steps are going to be to reboot an extraterrestrial civilization for yourself. So you're going to have to ensure transport networks. You're going to want to be able to ensure communication between your colonists. But even more fundamentally, you're going to want to start prospecting for the natural resources on this new planet. You're going to want to identify where the seams of metal ores are, so you can mine them and smelt them and produce metal to build more habitats and expand. Because the colony spaceship that you arrived in is only going to be able to provide a certain amount of resources before you've disassembled all of it, and you're going to have to start living off the land on the new planet you've arrived on.
Okay, so that's all pretty exciting, but remember, completely unfeasible with current technology. So let's get back to reality. If we were to colonize somewhere else, maybe in our solar system perhaps, are there any possible candidates?
The place in our solar system that humanity in our future is most likely to colonize and settle is going to be our next door neighbour planet. It is going to be Mars. If we do colonize Mars and build up this Martian population, it'd be by sending small numbers of people who make babies with each other, and there would be genuine Martians born in the next generation. But the long-term problems you're going to have to solve for colonizing Mars might be something like terraforming. How do you move beyond living inside a kind of space habitat where you have a pressurized capsule and grow your own food inside internal greenhouses? How do you make the next step to actually living outside on Mars and making the Martian environment a lot more terrestrial, a lot more clement? And the kind of technologies that people talk about, or the kind of challenges that will have to be solved, involve pumping up the atmosphere on Mars, so it's a high enough pressure that water can once again flow on the surface. And maybe seeding the Martian soil with lichen or cyanobacteria that can start growing in very hostile conditions and releasing oxygen to start building up air that one day humans might be able to breathe without a spacesuit.
So this prospect of humans colonizing Mars certainly seems possible. But when? Is this likely to be something you and I get to witness? Or maybe even take part in?
Hopefully the first mission will be within my lifetime, within our lifetimes. But because Mars is so far away, and such a long mission, it'd be at least 2 years to go to Mars and come back again with the orbital dynamics, it's going to have to be a very big, complex and expensive mission, and therefore most certainly a multinational effort. It'll be something like the International Space Station effort, but launching a ship to another planet. So including Europeans and Americans and perhaps the Chinese and Russians all working together to build this interplanetary ship, to set it sailing, to take people for the first time to another world.
And you know what? This could maybe even be sooner than that. A project called Mars One made headlines a few years ago when the non-for-profit organisation based in the Netherlands announced that it planned to send the first colonists to settle Mars in as early as 2023. Pretty much the whole process from the final stages of selection to ultimate planetfall and beyond would be televised too. It does sound kind of crazy, like Big Brother in space, except they would never get to leave. That's right, Mars One is a one-way trip. Exactly how realistic this is and whether or not it will actually happen, well, only time will tell. So, would you like to be one of these volunteers on a one-way trip to Mars? Or would you only be game if it actually took you beyond our solar system? Let me know in the comments down below or by reaching out to me on Twitter @CamFrazRob. Oh, and more for how to rebuild civilizations, why not check out Lewis's book called The Knowledge, How to Rebuild Our World from Scratch. It's really great and available from all good bookshops and some lousy ones too. Last week on Reality Check, I discussed the science of crisis-style invisibility. Now, in the comments on YouTube, user FleaPlayTV said, "This guy and Vsauce are like a smack of intelligence to your brain." Thanks, that's a huge compliment. Now, if you don't know Vsauce, you should totally go and check out his stuff. Granted, it's not all about games, but his episode on Is Your Red the Same as My Red is hands down one of my favourite things on YouTube. Thanks for watching, guys, and remember we've got a ton more great original programming right here on GameSpot. You should totally go and check out Danny's latest episode of The Point when he looks at misleading game trailers. As for Reality Check, well, I'll be back here next week, so see you then.